Hi, and welcome to another segment of the Rod Chappell Show. This is a show where we bring real-life legal issues to people in a way that you can use it. Today we're honored to have a great lawyer from right here in mid-Missouri who also happens to be the president of the Missouri Bar, Eric Bergmanis. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Rod.
Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, so we've been doing the show for a while, and we've talked about a lot of legal issues, but not necessarily about how lawyers are organized, the role of lawyers in everyday life as well as the courtroom, and really how we try to help society in the best ways possible. So I'm really happy to have you here today, and as the president and an experienced lawyer, you know probably better than most people about the issues that we're talking about. Before we get into all that, though, would you tell us about yourself a little bit?
Sure. I got licensed to practice law back in 1985. I moved from my home of St. Louis, Missouri down to Lake of the Ozarks. And within a short period of working for what was then the biggest firm in town, I think we were 5 or 6 lawyers, I got on the Young Lawyers Section Council. Did that for about 10 years and was the chair of that organization. And then afterwards, and the Young Lawyers Section Council is kind of like a mini board of governors for the Missouri Bar, as you know. And then I ran for a position on the Board of Governors in 1999 and got elected. And from that point to now has been my path to being president of the bar. And I have a law firm in Camdenton, Missouri. I have 2 lawyers that work for me and a support staff, and do a lot of criminal defense work, a lot of personal injury work. We do speeding tickets. We do cases where people are facing life in prison. We do car accident cases, helicopter cases, boat accident cases, and we've had I feel like I've had a good career doing that.
Oh yeah. Let me tell you, when I started telling people that you were going to be on the show, they're like, oh really? So let me tell you, folks are looking forward to seeing you.
Well, this is fun. This is a great opportunity. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, and in your role with the bar, and we call it the bar, but it's not where you necessarily go and grab a drink or something like that. It's the Missouri Bar. Can you just tell the folks at home what that is?
Sure. The Missouri Bar is an integrated bar, which means that all members licensed to practice in Missouri are required to be members of the Missouri Bar. There are approximately 30,000 lawyers in Missouri, and the governing board for those lawyers is what is referred to as the Board of Governors, and there's, I believe, 44 members on the Board of Governors. And when you run to be president, you first are elected into the seat as vice president, and you spend a year there, and then a year as the president-elect, and then a year as the president, and then the following year I would be the immediate past president.
And some say that's one of the best roles to have.
People say that I will be looking forward to that by the end of this term, although I can honestly say I think this is the best job a Missouri lawyer can have. I've thoroughly enjoyed being president of the bar and representing the people that are licensed to practice law and the people of Missouri, because we do both. We help the people that are lawyers, and we help them better serve their clients, and we help better serve the people of the state of Missouri.
Wow. Well, and so what are some of the things that the Missouri Bar does to help lawyers?
The Missouri Bar helps their lawyers do an even better job in representing their clients and helping their clients achieve justice.
Okay.
We recognize that the justice system belongs to the people of our state, and they deserve ready access to the information that helps them better understand how the law works and how it works for them.
That's and it's interesting that you mentioned that. I was watching some of the legislation that was going through, and it seems like there are attempts every now and then to affect how people use the courts. But this isn't any kind of legislation. This is an organization that tries to either increase people's awareness of the court system and how they can interact with lawyers. Is that fair too?
That is fair.
Okay.
We do a lot of different things to help people better understand the justice system and help them use it, to protect their rights and their interests. We produce videos, we produce guidebooks, we produce pamphlets to educate the public on what to do, or at least what to consider when they're facing legal issues. And you can find those at our website, MissouriBar.org and MissouriBarHelps.org. Those are places where the public can go for resources when they have legal needs.
Oh, excellent. And we actually brought some of those resources here today. I'll just hold one up maybe. We've got a pamphlet here, one of many. I mean, and so these come in different topics, is that right?
Yes, they do. Those are guidebooks that have been, produced by the Missouri Bar, by Missouri lawyers, and they are designed to help the public address their legal needs and answer their legal questions.
Really? And if a person wanted to get a copy of one of these, where do you think they would go?
Well, they can absolutely get one from the Bar Center in Jeff City. If they call, the bar will make sure they get a copy. And there's a number of those publications are available at different places throughout the state. Some of them are available in courthouses. Some of them are available at libraries or civic centers of types, like citizen, the domestic violence shelters and things like that. They would have some of these documents.
Right.
I think some of the nursing homes have our durable power of attorney documents. We try to place them where people will most likely have a need for them, but you can always get them through the Missouri Bar in Jefferson City by calling or finding us online and making contact with the bar, and they will make sure that you get a copy.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And here's one that I don't want us to miss. It's the durable power of attorney form for healthcare, if I'm right. Yeah. And it says the questions and answers, but it actually has a form in here that you could use to fill out if you needed to, right?
It has questions and questions that are answered in that pamphlet. But you're correct. There is a form in the back, and candidly, I've used it before with my clients. I've made some adjustments where they need it, but it's a very good, comprehensive form that has been put together and vetted by Missouri lawyers that practice in that field of law, and people that have health care issues or needs oftentimes find that having one of these in place has been very helpful for them. And in other words, this is one of those things that you should act on before the need arises.
Right.
And to some extent, someone who is no longer able to think for themselves is not able to sign one of these legally. So it would be important to get a copy of this and sign it and get it fully executed before the need arises.
I know you're right.
It's a little bit like a will.
Right. You can't do it after you're done, huh?
Right.
How much does this cost? I don't see a price on here.
It doesn't cost anything. It is a service that the Missouri Bar provides to the citizens of our state.
That's great. That's great. So you can get a durable power of healthcare attorney as well as a HIPAA privacy authorization form from the Missouri Bar for free. All you have to do is just call or ask for it.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, that's a good example of that. What do you think about the role of lawyers in society today?
Well, lawyers are here to help people through their complex legal problems, and I'm proud to be a lawyer because, and you heard earlier what I said I do. A lot of what I do is help people that have found themselves in a problem with the law. Some of them are very good people that have just made a mistake. Some of them are people who are innocent. But at the end of the day, it feels good to know that you helped out one of your fellow human beings. And we do these accident cases also. When people are injured, oftentimes they're really in need. They're in need of help in handling their medical issues, finding out how they're going to get their medical bills paid. Sometimes they need assistance in and direction and where to go for medical help. And then sometimes there's a way that they can be compensated for their injuries if someone else was at fault. And to me, it feels good to help people as a lawyer with those problems.
Right, right. It's and solving problems is just something that, it's funny. I used to always look at the word problems, we had in school.
Right.
And there were times in my life where I would run from those. But I think you're right. As a lawyer now, it seems like that's what we really get into.
Every now and then you get some feedback, and it may be years, but someone will come up to you and say, I remember a time when you helped me through this horrible problem, and it was one of the worst times in my life, and you made a difference.
Yeah.
Those are very rewarding moments when someone comes forward and tells you, or they might not tell you. They may tell one of your friends, or they may tell your wife at the grocery store, and those are very, very rewarding moments to know that you made a difference in making someone's life better. And throughout history, we have different heroes to look at. I mean, Abraham Lincoln was a lawyer, and
right.
Most people know that. Most people know that he was the person who abolished slavery in our country and stood up for what he knew was right. And think of the difference that made.
Right.
We've got Thurgood Marshall, who was a lawyer who fought against segregation in public schools. I mean, he was a lawyer.
Yep.
Who made a difference. And St. Louis has one of their has a very famous may be too strong of a term, but to me she's famous. But Frankie Muse Freeman is a lady who I believe is in her 90s at this time.
Yes.
She's an African-American lady,
Yep.
And she was instrumental in integrating the housing in St. Louis. And to hear her stories back in that day as an African-American lawyer fighting for the rights of people in this state, it's an impressive story. And she made a difference. And I think most people, if they reach way down inside, they want to know that their time on this earth mattered, that they made a difference, that they made the world a better place for their fellow citizens. And lawyers do that. Right.
That's exactly right. Lots of times I think we hear about lawyers who are doing this or that. In your experience, most of the time lawyers represent a party or an individual or a company. And is that where people tell their lawyers what to do or how they communicate that?
When lawyers meet with their clients, they learn about their case, and then they help the person decide that they have been employed or hired, or in many times the Missouri lawyers do work for free or at a discounted rate. I know we have veterans clinics where we do, lawyers volunteer to do work at a 25% discount. But something that I thought was somewhat humorous, and maybe I'm a little bit, maybe I shouldn't look at it this way, but there were two lawyers that had a dispute, and one of them sued the other one. And the lawyer that was sued said, I thought we could have worked this out in a civil fashion. And the lawyer who had filed the suit said, that's exactly what we're doing.
Right.
and lawyers are part of our justice system that help people resolve disputes in a civil fashion as opposed to maybe the rules of the Old West.
Right. And we're not going to step out in the street and start solving stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah, or at least that's what we're trying to get away from, because that might create a case there too.
Well, it creates a form of anarchy.
It does. It does. Yeah. It's and I think the other perception that sometimes folks try to battle is that lawyers are just doing stuff, just out there working at their own behest, and doing whatever they see fit, as opposed to working towards an objective of a client, whether or not that's on one side or the other of an issue. Do you think that that's well, and let me just say, I don't think that it's fairly portrayed all the time in the media or news accounts in the right way, right? Just because lawyers don't agree, or the clients, more importantly, don't agree on a particular issue, doesn't necessarily mean that the adversary process that we have in litigation is anything but that, something that takes place in a courtroom or in offices trying to get to a resolution.
It is something that is trying to get at a resolution of a problem. I think if I understand your question correctly.
I think so. We've got I'm really happy that we've got a couple of other topics that we want to touch and address on. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about in terms of how about this, finding a lawyer?
Yes, the Missouri Bar on its website in the public portion helps citizens of Missouri find a lawyer. There's a part of our website that allows a citizen looking for a lawyer in a particular topic area to go to that topic area and go through that and find a lawyer to assist them with their needs. So yes, we do provide what in essence is a form of a lawyer referral service. We're not exactly endorsing this particular lawyer, although there are certain requirements to be a part of that, to be listed on that service. I believe one of them is you have to have insurance, which in Missouri, it's not every lawyer. Lawyers are not required to have malpractice insurance, but to be on that website, you do have to have insurance.
You have to have it. And there's another thing, just a pre-qualification. In order to be a lawyer, right, you have to take a test, right?
You have to have an undergraduate degree from college, and then you have to take and successfully complete and pass a bar examination that has two parts. It has a state part, and it has I'm losing track of the term. You can probably help me with
sure,
this.
The multi-state.
Right,
Yep.
the multi-state part. You have to pass both parts, and you have to graduate from an accredited law school before you're allowed to take the Missouri bar.
Okay. And is that just one of the protections to make sure that people aren't getting faulty advice, or at least advice that's from an untrained person?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I tell you what, do you have time to come back and talk about the future of the bar and where we're going?
Absolutely, and something I should say now,
Oh, sure.
and I probably should say in the next segment too, if there's going to be one, is you're a member of the Missouri Bar Board of Governors.
I am.
And I want to thank you for your time and your service, and I also want to thank you for this show. I think this show's a great public project where the public can watch and see, learn from this dialogue, and I know what your pay is on the Board of Governors, and I understand it's the same here today.
Right, that's right.
So I just want to thank you for what you give back to the citizens of Missouri and the lawyers of Missouri.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Very well deserved.
Well, it's an honor to be a lawyer, and it's the least. It really is the least that I can do. Yeah. Well, we'll come back and we're going to talk more about where the Missouri Bar is going and some of the other aspects of how the bar intersects with the public.
Very good.
All right. Thanks for joining us on this segment of the Rod Chappell Show. We're looking forward to another segment with Eric Bergmanis, who's just done a magnificent job as president of the Missouri Bar, and talk about what's to come next. Please join us.
I'm Ann Littlefield,
I'm Claudia Kehoe.
and we're here to represent the Food Bank of Central and Northeast Missouri. Over half of the Missouri students qualify for free or reduced lunches at school during the week.
But on the weekends, many children go home to empty refrigerators.
The Food Bank provides buddy packs, backpacks full of nutritious food, so over 6,600 hungry children have food on the weekends.
But the need is much greater. Will you help?
When you adopt a buddy, you reach out to a child in need. Your 50 cents a day will make a difference in a child's life.
Visit www.sharefoodbringhope.org or call the Food Bank, 573-474-1020 to adopt a buddy.
Thanks for joining us again on the Rod Chappell Show. This is the second segment in a three-part series where we're talking about the Missouri Bar and how it has a meaningful impact on the role of lawyers and also the lives of Missourians. With us today is Eric Bergmanis. Thanks again for being here for another segment. We certainly appreciate it. In your role as president of the Missouri Bar, you have an opportunity to set the course for the organization, talk about objectives and priorities, as well as be a spokesman for lawyers throughout the state. I know one of the things that you've got on hand is a vision for the future. Can you tell us about it?
Absolutely. Again, thank you for having me. And with regard to the vision for the future, I assumed my role as president in the year 2015. And during that time, I began working with President-elect Dana Tippin Cutler and Vice President Nancy Mogab. Dana's from Kansas City, Nancy's from St. Louis, and we are working on what we are calling our 2020 Vision for the Future plan, and it's a 5-year plan, and at the end of 5 years, we will be in the year 2020.
Okay.
And so we have this clever name, 2020 Vision. Things that we are passionate about and that we are working on as a group, and the board will be working on over the next 5 years, is improving access to justice, keeping our courts up to date, and planning for the future of the profession. If you want to hear a little bit about each of those topics, I'd be happy to
absolutely,
to expound on this.
And access to justice is an issue that we've kind of addressed in other segments on the show, and so I think that would be great. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. First of all, we need to offer legal help for those who need assistance. And one thing we were just recently able to do was partner with the American Bar Association to provide Missouri legal answers to people of limited resources and needs, in that we have an interactive pro bono website. The ABA, the American Bar Association, is trying to put this together in all 50 states. So far, probably 80% of the states have joined in. I saw a map recently, but I can't give you the exact number, but Missouri agreed to join. And what we do is this website allows low-income people to post their legal questions and have those questions answered by volunteer lawyers that are licensed here in the state of Missouri. Some of the reason we're doing this is there are other services out there. Not all of them are run by lawyers, and they recruit lawyers from different parts of the country to answer legal questions. But if you have a question about a will or a question about a durable power of attorney, you would be much better off, in our opinion, to have a Missouri lawyer answer that question than, say, a lawyer from Vermont or California or some other state that may not be versed in Missouri law. They can have up to 3 questions answered each year if they qualify financially for that service. Other things that we're doing to improve access to justice is we provide oftentimes very detailed information to legislatures, to the lawmakers of our state, so that they can make informed decisions on laws that need to be changed or laws that they are passing. We have, for the last 4 or 5 years, maybe a little longer, reached out to our lawmakers in this state and said, if you will contact us, we will put you in touch with a lawyer who will help you draft your legislation so that it's more likely to meet the intents of the draftsman, so that there's not unintended consequences.
Well, and those are huge points. I mean, first, that Missouri's law is Missouri. I mean, and so it's necessarily crafted here in Missouri, right?
Correct.
The legislature does that, they pass a bill, governor signs it, or through some other apparatus, it becomes law.
Absolutely right.
Right. And then a lawyer from, say, Arizona might not necessarily know Missouri's law as it affects power of attorney or someone who's been injured in an accident, or even something that happens in a municipal court here in the state.
Correct. And laws vary from state to state, and they interact with other laws in that state. And what we want to do is provide good fact-based assistance to the Missouri legislature so that they can have an opportunity to understand how the laws they are passing will, be carried out.
And that's another good point. There are some legislators that are lawyers, right?
That's correct. Most of the public I'm afraid, believes that the legislature, the lawmakers, the representatives and senators in our state are all lawyers.
Right.
The truth is, a very small percentage of them are lawyers. Most of those people are not lawyers, and I don't know what the exact percentage of lawyers in the legislature is, but I know it's less than 10%. I think it's more around 4 or 5%. You may actually have that statistic.
No, and I think you're right. It's a single digit on the lower side of 5, yeah.
And people that are drafting legislation to make laws oftentimes are trying to tap into those guys that are there, the 4 or 5%, and they're trying to get their help. And sometimes those people are overwhelmed, or maybe it's not their area of expertise. If they will call the Missouri Bar, we will absolutely put them in touch with someone who has expertise in that area of the law to help them with their legislation. Whether we like it or don't like it, we want to help them get it drafted properly so that it will have the intended consequences that the drafter is looking for.
Sure. And so sometimes bills or legislation will add a thing to a law or maybe even take away a part. But it'd be nice to know what else will be implicated, right?
Right. What other parts of the law may be affected by this? How it's the other consequences, and sometimes those are hard to see, and they can be very hard to see for someone who's not a lawyer.
Oh yeah.
We are also working to expand our DWI and drug courts to make them more uniform and available throughout the entire state. Okay. If you go back in time, most people in our state have heard of juvenile court. Well, juvenile court didn't exist. It was a court that came about through lawyers working to find a different type of courtroom and perhaps even a different set of rules for juveniles, for the younger members of our society. And the juvenile courts evolved over time.
Okay.
And we have juvenile courts today. Something similar is happening with our DWI and our drug courts. And obviously DWI courts and drug courts address substance abuse issues. Right. And I'm going to try to paraphrase or quote Justice Ray Price from our Supreme Court from the year 2010 in his Chief Justice, or his State of the Judiciary address as Chief Justice. And what he said was, the over-incarceration of nonviolent offenders may be the biggest waste of government resources in our state or our country's history.
Wow.
And what he meant by that is, and I've heard, is that there are perhaps other alternatives to help these people. And just real quick, if you put a person in prison, it costs the state money. When they're in prison, oftentimes they're not supporting their family or their children, and the taxpayers then pay their child support for them. The taxpayers pay to incarcerate them.
Wow.
If there is an alternative court system where they can go through a different court and be treated for their substance abuse and be held accountable, and there are some very precise scientific studies that have shown that drug courts do work if you do them correctly. If you follow, there's a thing they call, I think, the 10-step program, and I don't mean it's not 10 steps for the offender. There are 10 requirements for the operation of a successful drug or DWI court. If you follow those, the percentage of success is very high. The cost on society goes down, and we have productive citizens. And I don't think there's any person over the age of, say, 21 in our society that has not somehow been affected by drugs and alcohol. Some family member, some friend, someone they know. Right. Everybody knows someone. Every family has been affected in one way or another by drugs and alcohol. Right. And if there's a way that we can, for example, the part of the state that I live in, which is Lake of the Ozarks, does not have drug and alcohol courts. If you have a third offense DWI in that part of the world, most people, at least historically, have gone to prison and have lost their driver's license for 10 years.
Wow.
If this happens to you in St. Louis or Kansas City, oftentimes there's a probation option that's available, and oftentimes there's a way for a person to keep a driver's license. And obviously a driver's license is something most people need to go to work.
Right.
If you can help the person through a drug court and you don't incarcerate them and they stay employed, they oftentimes are paying into the tax system and tax base, and they're not subtracting from it. So it can absolutely be a win-win situation for the citizens of our state. And we're hoping to have a more uniform DWI and drug court system throughout Missouri, something similar to what we have in the juvenile court system.
That's fantastic, and just another way that the Missouri Bar is actually bringing law to people in a way that it hadn't been available before.
That's correct, and we are so grateful to the legislature actually reaching out to us and offering to work on a committee together, the Missouri Bar with the legislature, and it's their idea that is coming about really at a time when we had the idea. And if we can again partner with the legislature to make a better situation for the citizens of our state, I think that's what we're supposed to be doing. I mean, the legislature obviously is supposed to be enacting legislation that is better for the citizens of our state, and I believe as officers of the Missouri Bar, we're supposed to be looking out for not just lawyers, but also the people of Missouri.
There you have it. Just a great example of how lawyers are working to solve problems, even at the same time that those problems are being addressed by our state legislature and being recognized by our families throughout Missouri. Thanks for joining us on the second part of this three-part series. I think that, Eric, if you have one more time, one more moment, we'll have just a look at some of the other services that the Missouri Bar offers in a third segment. So please join us on the Rod Chapel Show.